morning.
My
Good morning. Awesome. Well, I promise this isn't just another panel about AI, but instead it's going to be a contribution to a bigger question. Where does the Philippines stand in the global AI race? And what ultimately will be their role? Each of our panelists here today are here not just to share their insights or opinions, but to help define the blueprint for how AI is reshaping infrastructure, cities, customer experiences, and ultimately the framework of work in the Philippines. Their perspectives from government to real estate to tech is going to inform a real time roadmap for decision makers such as yourselves. Whether you're leading a CX organization today, you're investing in Southeast Asia, or maybe better yet, you're implementing an AI strategy. Today's conversation is designed to inform, to challenge, and potentially inspire. So I'll begin by introducing myself. I'm Lauren Eaches, the Vice President of CX Operations here at ExtendOps. And my responsibility is to implement tech and talent globally across our company. So with me today, I have Frederick Amores. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good morning to everyone. I'm Frederick Amores, though a lot of the people here in the community knows me as Rick. I work with the Department of ICT as the director for regional operations in Central Visayas. And basically, we're the government IT arm. So policies at the regional level, execution of projects like building infrastructure is under our portfolio. In the region, I also chair the ICT committee of the Regional Development Council, which is like the closest thing to a legislative body or your state assembly in the US. Um, to handle regional policies in our area. So that's basically it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominic?
I'm Buntag. So my name is Dominic Ligot. People call me Doc, but I'm not a doctor. It's to be clear. Sometimes I don't correct people anymore. So I have several hats. I guess the most relevant hat today is I'm the head of AI and technology for IDPAP, the IT and BPM Association of the Philippines. So we look at BPOs. I specifically handle AI strategy and messaging for IDPAP. Obviously, BPOs have been looking at AI on both sides as a friend and a foe, and certainly happy to talk about that today. On the secondarily, I'm the founder of a company called Zerolytics, Cirrus Clouds Analytics. So we started out as a cloud based data analytics provider, but now we're closer to a think tank looking at education for AI. We were one of the first to break the ice in terms of prompting back in 2023, and now it's called vibing. I don't know if you've heard of the term vibe coding. At the same time, we're also helping government, the ICP, with policy reforms. It's obviously all our laws existed in the era before AI, and certainly we need to look at how do we change these laws. So looking forward to talking about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we have Rick and Doc. I don't have a cool nickname. I'll just go by Lauren. But should we get started? Okay.
Let's go.
Fantastic. So the first question for either of you, when we talk about AI in the Philippines, what's the biggest misconception or maybe an underestimated truth that needs to be challenged today?
I think one of the very popular misconception is that AI will displace a lot of people in the workplace. But don't believe that is really the case. I think AI will be a very great tool to help improve productivity, but not replace people. I think that's the biggest myth out there, at least in the Philippine context, especially because of the BPO industry, that it might have such a big impact.
Absolutely. Something different or?
Yeah, along the same lines. If you look at the surveys, I keep saying there are two types of surveys regarding the Philippines. One set of surveys puts Philippines very low. Like you look at the World Talent Report, Oxford Insights, the Descartes Institute, they all say Philippines is going to be behind, infrastructure is bad, policies suck, etc. Nothing really wrong about that, but I think that's kind of underestimating the value of the Philippines because there's another set of surveys which I love, which I prefer talking about. For example, LinkedIn about a year ago said 86% of Filipinos on LinkedIn use AI. That's almost 9 out of 10. The global average is about 6 to 70%. So we're ahead of the global average in terms of retail usage. World Bank recently came out with stats saying that the Philippines is the number 4 in terms of traffic to ChatGPT in the world, right behind US, India, and Indonesia. And these are countries which have bigger populations. So which one is right? Which one is wrong? I think both are right in the sense that there's this disconnect. When we look at institutional views of the Philippines, it tends to put the Philippines down. But for the rest of us, I know you guys have been operating for some time now. We kind of know the real truth. That Filipinos are very resilient, very digital, and very AI savvy, apparently. So what does that mean? If you build it, they will come. If you give Filipinos the right opportunities, they will step up. And I kind of don't buy the idea that we're lowest ranked in terms of education because guess what? We're the second largest BPO destination in the world, just behind India. We're the number one source of nurses, seafarers, engineers, you name it. Our VAs are the most sought after talent in the world. So I don't know. Either these surveys are not really doing their work or there's something else. But the idea is don't believe the surveys. Look at the real behavior. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. I think it's a trend we'll see throughout today's program, right? It's not replacing jobs. And this is something that is so important that the AI needs the people and the people need the AI. All right, Director Amores, this is for you.
Yes.
All right. From your seat in the government, where are you seeing AI already actually being used and making a real impact?
Yeah. I was contemplating that question. So I think the first thing that comes to mind, basic, where every Filipino has access to. The government has what we call the eGov super app. It has its own built-in AI assistant. You can ask any questions. In fact, I did ask the AI, uh, what were the areas we were doing work in, and I had a really good answer from them and confirmed some of the things I had in mind. For example, in the area of agriculture, if you need to do analysis of crop yields, Philippines being a lot of agricultural sector as well, and the use of making services more efficient. For example, now when you travel to the Philippines, I'm sure you've tried. Just go to the app, you submit a QR code, and you're done. Right? So more efficient than paper-based systems before. We're also trying. I was talking to one of the health providers, government health providers, and they're looking into using AI technology to improve the analysis, for example, or CT scans, like we do in other countries in the world. So, and of course, traffic. One of the things that we have to deal with, I think AI is also going to be an important tool, especially in managing the efficiency of like traffic lights and all that instead of just simple timers. So there's so many areas that we are working on to adopt AI. But though I have to admit that we still have a long way to go, especially in terms of policy. In fact, our last conversation of Dominic was during a policy forum for AI a few months
Over
back
election.
over Lechon here in Cebu. So I think that conversation will still continue. Hopefully, we'll have our needed legislation because I think there are 3 pending bills. I think Dominic also has some input on that, right, Dom? Because you were involved in some of the crafting of those legislations. So I think those are areas of our work that we are slowly starting to integrate in the way government works, and same time casting more additional policies so that we have a clear framework for AI adaptation in government.
Thank you. All right. Doc, you're up. How do you see AI reshaping companies from physical workspaces in the Philippines? And like, how is the Philippines responding to that?
Yes. Apart from what I said earlier, the retail adoption of AI is quite high. But what keeps companies from adopting AI? I think there's a lot of baggage from recent trends. Like I would say, a lot of major investment Philippines has been held back because many of them are still hurting from crypto. from blockchain. There's a lot of broken hearts there. But even before that, I think one of the fundamental shifts is to make AI less of an IT thing because IT projects have a nasty habit of dragging on, going over budget, etc. I've been there. I'm an IT guy, and just moving it out of the IT space and into something closer to HR, for example, or something closer to talent development. Make AI less of a programming thing because it's not. You know, you can use it for planning, you can use it for content. Well, traditional data analytics and IT tend to be quite techy. It surprises a lot of people when they realize how very little you need to know about tech just to use AI. And then you can flip it around. One of the worst disrupted industries right now. I'm sure you guys saw what 4.0 did to image generation. You can now create a Studio Ghibli portrait of yourself. I just did that right now while I was in the audience. So artists are hurting, uh, teachers are hurting, and if you see the common denominator between education and art, is that there's a lot of status in education. You know, you have to have all these degrees, you have to have a PhD. In art, you kind of have to be recognized as an artist. And what AI does is just fundamentally democratize that. No, you don't. Just produce, just create. So I think that's the big shift for companies who kind of get it, focus on shipping output rather than looking at. I heard Sean on the interview just earlier. BPOs have always been traditionally headcount based, like how many seats, how many heads. But then if you shift that to output based, outcome based, that's a fundamental culture. And even with clients, you know, they're not used to output based billings, for example. So I think that's where kind of the initial storming is going to happen. But then the promise is, I'm not kidding, from personal experience, 20x productivity is easy. Probably 100x, even 1000x is kind of where the median is. And those numbers are going to be too compelling to ignore. Right now, people are just worried about the Terminator and the Matrix. But then when they see the value, we kind of stop talking Hollywood, talk productivity instead. I think that's when the floodgates are going to open.
For sure. Um, let's change direction here a little and potentially talk about trade-offs. Do you see, if anything, a real cost for potentially not adopting AI today?
Well, yeah, I don't want to sound too much like the Kool-Aid guy, but you know how they keep saying there's only going to be three kinds of companies. You like jump to the future, go into hibernation, and pop up 10 years from now and try to recall what companies you knew. You're going to be in three categories. There'll be AI driven companies, there'll be companies who are trying to adopt AI, and then there are companies that no longer exist. There really is no middle ground. Another kind of vivid way I would describe it, look for a car company that sells horses. There aren't any. When cars came in, horses went out of a job completely. But whenever I meet companies, they always talking about a phased approach, stage one, stage two, tier one, tier two. Maybe we do this AI thing for this department first, and the rest can wait. You're either in or you're out. So if I bring that back to practical terms, I think it begs the question: do you see yourself or your company existing in 10 years? And it boils back down to what value do you provide your user, your customer? It goes back to that. It's less about all these other corporate stuff. And what AI will do is delete all of that corporate stuff and focus on value. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a storm for the next few years. I'm sure you all read the Andreessen Horowitz article about a month ago. They're really for me it was the pivot. That means VCs are throwing money at AI companies that are looking to disrupt BPOs. But then BPOs have been resilient for years. They can adopt and they have funding too. So it's going to be a race between those BPOs that retool and then the new type of BPO that's going to come in.
Yeah, I think from a government perspective, perhaps, I think one of the areas that we do have some challenges in the implementation of this is availability of the physical network infrastructure. We have to admit that there are a lot of there's still places in the Philippines that may not have the necessary capacity in terms of networks. But I think in most of the provincial capitals, the population areas, there's more than enough infrastructure for that. And yesterday I talked with, and I know you have operations in Iloilo and here in Cebu, and I have been regional director in both areas. So I've seen the growth of this infrastructure. And that's why the DICT right now is really working on building more infra. On the countryside, we're building more like fiber networks, and we're encouraging the telcos as well to expand. In fact, that's going to be the challenge for the next few years to really build up even to the last mile more infrastructure. So it's not just in the metro areas like Manila or Cebu or even Davao or Iloilo, but even in other islands, the Philippines being archipelagic in nature. So I think that's one of the challenges. Once we have addressed that, we can have AI adoption all over the country. So, and the other one I think is also the savviness of the our citizens in terms of the utilization of AI, and of course to dispel those myths of the Terminator and all those stuff, right? So we're doing also a lot of work. We work with other government agencies like DepEd, Tesla, to do some capacity building on the use of these technologies such as AI. So I think there's a lot of effort going on right now. Hopefully we'll be able to, address these concerns. And of course, I think the third one is because, and we're working on this, the policy frameworks, legislation that governs it, because a lot of business would expect that, they want to be sure that the right governance infrastructure for AI is present. So maybe that will also address some of the hesitancy of the the public in general to be using AI. But on a sort of funny note, just to show an example, I do encourage my team, my staff, especially because I have to do a lot of speeches every week. So it's so hard to write all of that. So sometimes I just tell them, okay, do the initial draft and use AI to sort of finesse the speech. And during a recent event, which I did the keynote, one of the audience was a student of mine, and we were discussing about AI. And I told him, this was sort of finessed by AI, but it doesn't sound like AI.
Compliment.
So, so I said, yeah, I think that's pretty good, right? If your team is able to use AI, that doesn't sound like AI, right? So I think that's a pretty good example of how we are really utilizing it as a tool rather than just simply ask AI to write something and present it, and everybody knows it's just written by AI. So I think those are the things we do in government that shows how we can really use this and overcome some of these challenges.
Thank you. I think weighing the benefits that we've highlighted like this morning, right? And like people's want to use it. And then also maybe some of the challenges you highlighted with whether it's infrastructure or legislation. Can you identify one area that maybe the Philippines shouldn't bother to compete in the AI race, or is that not relevant?
I think the Philippines should really be at, I don't know if Dom will agree, but for me, I think we should really be more looking into how we adopt these existing technologies to our specific use cases instead of, for example, really building our own large language models and the like, but really focus on uh, how do we apply this for operation at this point in time, considering a lot of these things are like resource intensive activities, which I think we may not be ready at this point, but maybe in the future. I think Dom, you might have some take on that as well.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. Um, okay, maybe we'll go macro first. As a country, and this is not necessarily a good thing, we import everything. I think we're the world's largest importer of rice. As an Asian country, that's a big deal. Uh, and we export humans. We export OFWs, and the BPOs are kind of an export sector as well. We're like OFWs, but instead you're not flying out; you're just doing it over the net. So what does that mean? It's been good for BPOs. It's been good for foreign currency. But in terms of empowering other infrastructure, empowering other industries, actually not too good. For example, there is a shortage of nurses in the Philippines now. Why? Because medical BPOs are hiring all of them. They would have instead boarded a plane to Canada or the UK. But instead, they're working here. They're working here. They're working in Dumaguete. They're doing telemedicine. They're doing care plans. Good. But hospitals don't have them. So our hospital sector is struggling to hire these nurses because the average pay for an entry level BPO worker is about double than an entry level nurse. So is that good or bad? There is a shortage of accountants. I studied accounting. I never practiced accounting, uh, but because I thought it was such a boring job. And then for a while, there was this weird career path for an accountant where you apply for a job at the Caymans or the Virgin Islands, all these tax shelters, because they need a lot of accountants there and earn a decent wage. But now, financial BPOs are setting up here and they're sucking up all the accountants from the system. So suddenly, accounting is an interesting career again. But what about real accounting work for real companies or other companies or accounting firms? They're going to struggle now. So I feel that from a policy standpoint, something needs to happen. In other words, we got to leverage our strengths, which is services and BPO, and then use that to transfer knowledge to others. Like I worked in a BPO for a couple of years. I worked in a bank BPO, and I came from a local bank, went to a bank BPO. The work I did in the BPO was more complex than any local bank. So I felt like I became a better banker. And you have these big banks like JP Morgan, Capital One. They're set up as BPOs. So in terms of talent development, banking is cool because you go to these BPOs. But is that talent going back to local banking and helping their practices? Not sure. So I feel that's really the trade-off. And one day, very soon, the advantage of the Philippines, which is essentially English language, could be eroded if other countries pick up AI that can easily do translation. Like I know Vietnam is really keen to do that. They've got really good software developers there, except you can't talk to them if you don't speak Vietnamese. But then an AI agent can do that translation. So in a way, we have to do a lot of defense. I mean, they're very far from catching up, really, really far in terms of headcount. But that threat is really there. And then in the future, I don't want to get too political, but you can imagine, the Elon Trump, they're going to be more interested in funding AI startups rather than exporting more jobs to India and the Philippines. So the middle ground is actually AI BPOs because you can get that money and you can still provide jobs. I don't know if I'm reading off your script, but that's that's the strategy. So I think the trade-off is the opportunity if you sum it up.
I think you've been speaking to our script this whole panel because I've heard you mention terms such as pivot and sort of as we're calling it.
All of 2 minutes, Pinchan.
There you go. Good prepping. But my great pivot is just like another way of saying shift, and that's what today is about, right? Shifting the perspective regarding AI. So today we're here to listen, we're here to challenge, but ultimately we're leading the conversation on how the Philippines is going to show up in the future of AI. So we're excited to explore that further today. Thank you to both of you for being here this morning, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.